Rubiano, and I wanted to create this little tutorial to share with you my newest love of a particular art material, which in this case is, drumroll please, this shrink film from Grafix Art Plastic. It's made for your inkjet printer, and so you can print anything you want on this and shrink it down. So this has generated a lot of creative ideas for me, and I am teaching several classes in it now online, and it's just a lot of fun and very easy to do. So I wanted to show you how I combine this with another little favorite thing, which are these little cloches by Tim Holtz, hence the name, cloche encounters of the miniature kind. And yes, it is pronounced cloche, kind of like you would say it if you were back in junior high with your retainer in and trying to say close. So we are going to make little personages to fit into these little glass domes, such as this. And I know glass is always hard with a glare, but let me see if I can bring it up. But they're wonderful little pieces that we're going to create with this shrink plastic. I have another one here. But I've always kind of wondered what to put in these little domes, and this inkjet shrink plastic provides a wonderful solution with, I think, lots of possibilities. So I just wanted to do a little free tutorial to get you all motivated and on the shrink plastic train. So what you're going to do is you're going to purchase your shrink film. Make sure that it says inkjet. You cannot use the regular white shrink film. The ink will slide right off. And yes, it has to be an inkjet printer. You cannot use this with a laser printer because laser printers use heat to set their inks. So you might warp this or it might not print properly. So inkjet only for best results. And you want to have your imagery. This is a sheet that I've created. I sell sheets like this specifically for shrink plastic. The images have been adjusted for color and density, intensity I suppose, or color density, because as your shrink plastic shrinks, your colors intensify. So you actually want these to look a little bit lighter. So let me go over our supplies really quickly. This is a nice project because you really don't need a whole lot in the way of supplies. Most of these you probably already have on hand and in your hand. You could be crafting right now as we're watching the video. But so we have our shrink plastic, we have our little miniature cloches, though they're called decorative domes by Tim Holtz. You want to have some nails. I purchased these at just, I believe, a Home Depot. Number 19, which indicates how thick the shank is on the nail, and about 1/2 inch. Because what we're going to do is use these as little stands in the back of our pieces, and you can see that. So you want to have nails. I like to have a little bit of white paint because that will match the back of your shrink plastic piece. A little dauber to put the paint on the nail I found is the easiest way to do it rather than a paintbrush. This is a metal hole punch by Beadsmith. It's a 1.2 millimeter. So the hole this punch makes matches the size of the wire or the metal that makes up the shaft of these nails, so you have a good fit. This you can find online, various retailers. I think I got mine on Amazon, of course. These are my new favorite scissors to cut shrink plastic with. They are by the Paper Studio. They super sharp, they go through the plastic like butter, and they have this really great little micro tip. My favorite adhesive to use for projects like this is the Ultimate by Crafter's Pick. It's a water-based super glue, excellent adhesion. I mean, I've had things that have lasted something like 15 years using this product. It's pretty much my go-to adhesive, absolute favorite. Have some paint brushes for putting the adhesive on when we're assembling our little people. I have a little bit of glitter. This is German glass glitter. I like the coarse grind, and that's what I have in the base of these pieces. You kind of see in there. And you're going to need an oven or a heat source. I like to use a toaster oven. It has a little pan in here, and I have a silicone sheet that keeps the plastic from sticking to the metal. This thing's about 18 years old. It's traveled across the country with me. I've taught workshops for different art retreats like Art and Soul, Art Fest, Art Continuum, and just, it's a good one. It's by Magic Chef. But you can find, you know, even at garage sales or things like that, you don't need an expensive model, just one that will heat fairly thoroughly and consistently. I also like to have a small tile. This, again, I just picked up at the home supply store. They're like 10 cents, but it's a great surface for flattening the shrink plastic when it comes out of the oven. And then finally, you can add color to your shrink plastic using any form of pastel, but I really like these pastel pencils by Stabilo. They're Carb Othello, and they're great, especially for these smaller pieces. It makes them very easy to color in. So I think with all of that, we will go ahead and jump into the project. See you in a moment. And I always do this. I'm looking right at the supplies and I forget to mention something. We're going to use this little paper punch to make little crowns. The shrink plastic, also a brand new thing from Grafix. It comes in a metallic silver and gold. And so you can use your paper punches to cut little shapes out and shrink them in the oven. So that is the little crowns. There we are, up to the camera. That's the little crown that he's wearing. That's made out of shrink plastic. And then in this one, again, glasses. Well, I guess I could take the, I don't have these glued shut yet. How about that? So, trying to watch camera off to the side, but I have a little, she's holding a little star right there, see? And that is made out of the metallic shrink plastic as well. And all I did was use this hole punch with a star shape that I've had forever and a day. So again, trying to utilize tools that I already have in my studio. This shrink plastic just makes a really great conduit for using up things that you already have. So, all right, now we're really going to start the project. So I like to do things in, you know, having things drying and going back and forth because I hate waiting for things to dry. And so I usually try and have several projects going at one time. So before we start cutting these out, we're going to go ahead and paint our nail. So I've got a little bit of this Martha Stewart. This is Wedding Cake, just a nice white, very white. That's probably way too much. You don't need much at all. And it rolls around where I can't see it. There it is. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And all I do is get just a little bit of paint. It's not going to take much with my dauber, which I realize now I might have missed saying that, introducing that in the supply video as well. But I'm just going to daub it. Kind of roll it around. And like I said, I found this is the easiest way to get paint on this metal. You know, trying to hold it and paint it with a paintbrush, and that was just way too much work. So, just going to give it a nice coating like that. Make sure and wash that out pretty quickly because if your acrylic dries in it, you will not be happy. So I'm going to set that aside and now go do my coloring and cutting out, the fun part. I'm going to zoom back out. Alright, so I have printed this out on my inkjet printer, and again, these have been adjusted. A couple of important things when you're printing these out. You want to set your printer for photo paper. You don't want to run this through on your regular paper because the printer is not going to, it needs to know that a thicker piece of paper is going through, otherwise it won't print correctly. And when you are cutting these out, you want to make sure that your hands are nice and dry because again, this is ink on plastic, and if you get it wet in any way, then it just it turns actually kind of a funky red color from the moisture in your hands sometimes, and it can leave some unsightly spots. So you just want to make sure and do that and be aware of that. My downfall is lotion. I put lotion on my hands all the time, and that's enough moisture that it can affect these. But I'll show you some tips for avoiding that. And then as far as this project actually going to take you probably 2 to 3 days, just allowing for drying time, because like I recommend that if you're going to color these, then you want to let them dry for about 24 hours. Again, because you have ink on plastic, and it just takes some time for that to dry, because as you come back and try and color these, if the ink's not dry, you end up just kind of scritching into it and you don't get a really nice coverage. So I know it's hard to wait, but that's something I'm going to recommend. So I'll get out my groovy little scissors that I love, and I have found for this particular little dome, the images need to start at about 2 3/4 of an inch tall. Of course, you can do them smaller than that, but that's what I found is just kind of a nice size that fills up the dome and works very well. As you can see, these are, I think the 2.75 or 2 3/4 are the tallest of each set of these, and then I've made some smaller ones because that's fun too. It really is an amazing product. The detail that you get when these shrink down is just phenomenal, and like I said, I think you'll quickly become addicted. And so I'm going to set that aside, put these guys away. Alright, so when you are cutting these out, you want to make it a point to, like I said, not hold it here in the middle, because you will get a nice red thumbprint in the center. As I'm cutting, I usually try and hold off to the side away from my print and do as much as I can around that. So these images have a little bit of the background left around them, mainly because I worried that if you just had a singular outline to cut, that perhaps if you didn't get in close enough or didn't cut something out, that it would be that bright white when you shrunk it down. So let me know if that's not if I wasn't thinking correctly in that. But like I said, these scissors are great. They go through this plastic so easily. And you'll find it's a little bit different than cutting paper, but not a whole lot, just kind of with our rules of trying not to touch it. So you'll notice as I start to move this around, I'm going to hold it by the edges. And the plastic's stiff enough that you're able to do this. It's kind of like cutting cardstock. And I'm just following around. Now, the only thing with these smaller pieces is, yes, you're going to have a few more difficult cuts, just because you're going to have some little nooks and crannies that might be hard to get into. But again, some tips for that is just coming at things in different directions and meeting up to take pieces out that might be. In the plastic, I usually just kind of pull it back and pull it off. You also want to be careful of, if you are cutting in a tight space, sometimes your scissors can sort of drag against the ink, and you will get a kind of a blue line through it. And I'm not really sure why it's always blue, but that's the color it is, kind of a nice cobalt. So I've got the main part cut out, and now I want to come back and do these little bits around her head and face. So these shrink. The package says 20%, but I'm thinking more along the lines of 50%, but math was not my strong suit, so and I never could do percentages correctly, so I may be completely off the mark on that. But she's got a little bit of something right here beside her face where her ear is. Ears can be tough. I've taught classes several times where we cut photos out in different ways, like with a jeweler's saw or things, and so we get a lot of what I call Frankenbabies, where they'll get oddly shaped heads or ears, but those are design opportunities. That's why I like hats and crowns so much. So there, she's all cut out, and now I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can look at, and my hands are sweating because I've got the oven right here, so that's going to be interesting. Okay, so as I said, any form of pastel will work to color these. You can use your regular chalks, you can use pan pastels, you can use stick pastels, but like I said, I really like these pastel pencils by Carbothello, or Carbothello pencils by Stabilo. And you just kind of pick a color and start working on it. Oh, you know what? I forgot to cut out my butterfly wings, but we will do that in a moment. I'm going to do this color. Now, yes, you could very easily fill this all in. And you want to keep in mind, again, that these colors are going to intensify. So you don't have to put much color in, which actually is kind of nice. You don't use up your materials as fast. But I love the way that these pastel pencils just lay on the color very easily. So you can do your background color like this. And say I decide that that was too bright, then I'm going to take a dry fingertip, or you could take a paper towel. And you can actually back some of, pull some of that color back off. It's still going to be pretty intense. And you can add design and detail with these as well. So you can very easily, and like I said, my hands are getting warm from this. You can use a piece of paper. I have wax paper under this, but I can put that over and hold her down where my finger won't cause a problem. So yeah, you don't want to do these while you're taking in the sauna at the spa or out in summertime in Texas, where it's supposed to have a heat index of 105 today, and it's only May 31st. Give her maybe some little buttons here. See, very easy to add some color and detail there. You could also, come back in with another color. I tend to go fairly simple just because these are very small pieces, but I'm pretty happy with that. She might need one more dot. Sometimes I like to put a little pink in their cheeks. Be warned, if you do that, it's going to take just like you would barely blush it. You almost don't see it, and it intensifies so much, especially with these being so small. And it's kind of funny, sometimes they look like little clowns when they come out when I overdo the blush. So that's all that takes. She's ready to go into the oven. So the toaster oven is set at 325. And it's going to take less than a minute for this piece to cook. It goes very quickly. And it's hard to video this when it's shrinking, but I promise you it's the best part. It's enthralling. You would think you're 6 years old again. It's magic. So I highly recommend you get something that has a window in it that you can watch the process. And she's folding up like a jackknife, and everything's shrinking down. And I should have a spatula to pull this out, but not sure where that is. Found it. All right, so let's pull her out. I like to just give her a quick squish, make sure it's flat. There you go. Is it focusing? Isn't she precious? So cute. Now, if you want to create a crown for her, and sometimes you'll get a little bit of color transfer onto your tile, that just wipes off with a paper towel. Make sure and clean it each time because you don't want to go and do another one and transfer, fuchsia onto your bright yellow piece there. If you want to make the little crowns, and this little punch is by the Paper Studio as well. They're coming out with some really great things. But all you're going to do is take your metallic sheet, and I like to do it upside down like this so I can look through the bottom of this and see where I'm at and not use up a bunch of my materials. So I would just line it up like that. And I know this is going to stick because I've been cutting out so many that it's been sticking lately, but I will fix that later. But I'll still get my little crown there. And so again, I'm just going to pop that in the oven. I have noticed that the silver and gold shrink plastic, when it shrinks a little bit thicker than the white for some reason. Not sure why that is, but I have noticed that. If you're going to allow for something else or need to do something else, I'm not sure. And same thing if you were going to use the hole punch. I line it up to see where I'm at so that I can and just punch out some little stars and toss them in there, and they come out, just warn you, teeny. Come out real small. So again, I'll just drop these in there, pull out my little crown because it's finished. So cute, itty bitty, super cute. And then the stars are always kind of fun to get out, and you really need the silicone sheet or parchment paper, works well too, because these are so tiny. Itty bitty. But they make really cute little accents. So yes, we're working pretty small here, people. So at this stage, I would like to go ahead and spray her with a coat of matte acrylic spray. All right, so while you were gone, you didn't know you were gone, did you? I did cut out some butterfly wings, just cut these out and snipped it down the middle to make a pair for her, for our little person. So now we're going to assemble it. And again, I'm using the ultimate. Things are so big compared to this little girl. And it's not going to take much. Like I said, it's a water-based super glue. I like it because it has a good body to it. And things kind of stay put when you put them in place. So a little bit of the super glue and apply it in the shoulder area. She kind of looks like from behind, she's got the 80s shoulder pad silhouette. Rocking that outfit. And you simply stick them on. Now, you do want to be mindful of the width of your pieces because they have to fit under the dome. So you want to make sure, I'm not going to stick these wings out too wide because I want them to fit through the opening. I've done that before. That one I showed you where she has the little Luna moth wings, I kind of have to turn her sideways a bit to get her in because the wings stick out a little more than I meant them to. And the great thing about this shrink plastic is once these are shrunk down, I mean, you have kind of a knobby matte finished surface, which I just love. I love the texture of it. And this stuff doesn't come off. I mean, you can scratch it with a fingernail, and even if you're, you saw how easily that pastel wiped off when I was tinting it. Once it's baked on, I guess it combines with the coating on the shrink plastic. It stays put. And the nice thing about that shrink plastic, I forgot to mention earlier, is it's coated on both sides, so you really can't mess up printing on the wrong side. So just remember that. But I think we got this where she'll fit. Oh, see, always test it before that glue sets. She is kind of wide, but I do like her, so I'm going to move those wings in just a smidge. Let's try that. There we go. So she fits in there. She kind of, a little bit right there, but it still fits. So she'll be very, and then I am going to put a little crown on her. Just a little bit here at the top, because there isn't a lot of extra space. Love that she has that one little curl. So there is her with her crown, and then these are even more fun to put on because they're so tiny. You might need tweezers. Let's see. can pick one up and add. It really doesn't take much for this adhesive. We'll see how dexterous I am. I think she's holding a little star. I've always enjoyed small things, and making these tiny little pieces has just been so much fun. So, and sometimes I will kind of come back and make sure that the adhesive, I don't know if that's going to show very well, it's white on white, but kind of pull that down so it merges with that plastic, like so. There she is in all her glory. So she's ready for her next event, which is going to be getting her attached to the platform. So let's get that cleaned up and move on to that stage. All right, so we have to do a little prep work on these before we can use them. When I was first playing with this, I really enjoy engineering things and figuring out the problems and how I can create in reality what I see in my head. So open these up. It's an unboxing. Didn't know that's a whole thing. My niece can sit for hours and watch unboxings of Barbies or other toys, or it's a whole thing. Like people, it's a cottage industry. People make money on YouTube doing that. So there was my unboxing. I hope you enjoyed it. So it would be rather difficult to get these little pieces to just stand up in here on their own because you just don't have much to brace them against. So I was thinking, well, how can we get a prop, in there? So I love this little hole punch. I mean, I know there's other metal hole punches on the market, but this one is my favorite. It comes in a 1.2 millimeter and a 1.5 millimeter. And if you want to, you can mark a little dot in here with a Sharpie if you want it in the exact center. That would work with some of the images where you have just a straight up, they have their legs together, so you know that that pin is going to come up right through the center. This one actually, when I started looking at her, there's a little space between her legs, so you could still, I think the first one I did with the Luna Moth wings, I did do that where that pin is just kind of right up through the center between her legs. But on this next go round, I thought, well, maybe I'll try and position it where it's just up the back of one of her legs. So when I did that, I just kind of set her in there and then, looked at it from this perspective and took a Sharpie and just made a little dot behind one of her legs. So that hole was off to the side. But, oh, all right. I try and step this out so it's ready for the videos, and sometimes I get going in the wrong direction. But, so let's just say, because I did the last one, and you want to keep in mind you've got these little side ridges that come up to hold the glass in place. Don't put them in between the jaws of your punch because you'll squish it flat, and I know that because I did it on the first one. So I kind of rotate it through where I have the opening where I won't squish anybody or anything, and you just pop a hole in it. Very simple to do. See the hole. Now, when you're punching metal, you will always have on the breakthrough side, you will always have some of that excess metal, and so there's a little bit of a flange on here, and that might interfere with your nail sitting flat. So what you can do is actually take a drill bit that's bigger in diameter than your hole and just put that in there and rotate it, and that will take that little bit of excess metal off and give you a nice clean hole. That's called countersinking. So now when I put my nail in, it will be flat. And through the wonders of editing and quantum physics, I have a nail that's all ready to go. It's been painted white. And so what I like to do is you want to have a little bit of this ultimate glue around the nail head, and then, which it rolled away on my white table. You're all probably telling me right where it is. Oh. There it is. I like to put a little bit just kind of around here before I even put it through, because then that way there is some adhesive on the back side of this. So I simply push the nail through. And there is going to be, you know, a little bit of excess here on the bottom. Again, since it's a water base, I don't mind getting it on my hands. Some adhesives you don't want to run your fingers through. So I've got some there, and that'll be on the far side. Let me zoom in just a little bit for this more delicate work. And now I have this small brush, and I want to apply some adhesive around the base of this to help steady it in place and kind of build up. It's okay if it stands up off the base, the little brass base. But what I want to do is reduce that amount of wiggle in that piece on that nail that I've put through. So this is where I was saying that you need to wait for things to dry. I would do this and set it aside and let that glue dry completely. This sets up pretty fast, but I'd give it at least a couple of hours, if not overnight. And then again, through the wonders of magic prepping work, I have one all done. So now you can see that I have very little wiggle on this, and it's ready for me to put my little person against, which I just realized I used the wrong person when I did my little setups. So we are going to put her on here, and it's going to be kind of just there between her legs like that. But that's fine. That's not a big deal. So again, I am just going to apply my adhesive. And I want a goodly amount on there because I kind of want it to squish around and get a good grip. You can put a little bit on her feet because I want those to stick to the bottom piece as well, just for a little extra stability. And this is where, like I said, the adhesive, it's, I mean, I don't want to fling this around, but you know, I can get her kind of up against that space. And cat hair, which I have 3 cats, so if you see any in my videos, I apologize. But I want her to stand up. You can see she's pretty perpendicular, and I have another small brush ready that I can sort of smooth that glue down on this back side, kind of like we did the crown, making sure that there's good contact between the surfaces. And kind of blends right over that nail and everything, making sure I have adhesive at all the contact points. As you can see, I use not very expensive brushes, so they're all going everywhere, but I use a brush with this glue, with this adhesive, because it can get so thick over time. And there, you can kind of see, smoothed it down. But that's why you want that nail to be in place and dry so that you can kind of push against it. A little bit more around her feet. Because we're going to put glitter. And that's why I like the coarse grain, because it kind of hides all manner of evil. So then you would just set this aside and let her dry. And move on to the final stage. Sorry, getting her to stand up straight. Which is adding the glitter to the base. And again, what? You have one ready to go? I do. So the thing to be mindful of when you're putting the glitter in the base is that this little dome seats down and you actually have a small radius where that glass fits down there. That'll make more sense in just a moment. But I want to coat the base here with my adhesive, and then I'm going to add the glitter in. But I'm going to leave a radius around it. Trying to get some glue off the adhesive off the, and not get it all over everything else. Maybe I should invest in a little bit better brushes than this one in particular. Yeah, that overhead camera is kind of nice for this. You can see exactly what I'm doing. Imagine that. But you can see how I'm leaving a little ring around, because that's where my glass dome is going to fit into that space. And again, I'm telling you this because the first one I made, I did not allow for that, and there was some serious crunching going on when I tried to put my glass dome on. It didn't want to go because there was a bunch of coarse glass glitter in the way. See, I make the mistakes, not mistakes, I make the experimental stages of this and try different things, so you just get the straight scoop and don't have to worry about having the same issues that I did. Because believe me, there are issues on things. Okay, oops. So that looks pretty good. That's about what you want. I'd say, is that about 1/8 of an inch around that? And we are going to get a piece of plastic, not plastic, wax paper. All right, this is by Recollections. They have a variety of colors. I really like this. This is vintage gold. I like the vintage gold or platinum colors are my favorites. And so we're gonna say that a lot. We are going to, should enunciate more. Just sprinkle some glitter right in there. Always cap your glitter, because as soon as you don't, that's when you'll knock it over, or the cats will knock it over, or somebody's going to knock it over. And I did that with some fine glitter the other day, which I swore I would never allow in my house because you never get rid of it. This coarse glass glitter is fine. So I just kind of press around because I want it to get down into that area and kind of check that it came up kind of her feet. Give it a dump. And this is where you can have one more little brush, because you can come in and kind of clear out those areas where it might be overlapping or sticking out. And I just kind of brush it back into the area, but I want that there, a little spanking. And this is why you want this to be dry, because otherwise you'll have glitter stuck to the back of it. And you could also, if this for some reason was discolored, you could easily paint that in the back. Acrylic paint goes over this plastic very easily. And see where I got that little bit of adhesive on the side? It's stuck. But the coarse makes it pretty easy to move them out of the way. If you had the very fine glitter, it might be a little more problematic to clear this channel. All right, whoops. And this is me, a recovering perfectionist. It's like, oh, there's one piece that won't come off. gonna bug me. All right, now I'll be able to sleep tonight. Okay, so there is your finished piece. And so now all you have to do is put the little dome over it. And I usually put it in and kind of move it around, make sure I've gotten all that. If you were going to take advantage of the little bit here on the top, then I would recommend you take a little adhesive, put it around the bottom of the dome. Again, it's not going to take a whole lot. You don't want to have big glue glops coming up the sides of your piece or inside your... Also, because everybody's going to want to pick these up and look at them. That's what everybody does when I show them. So, very carefully. And twist it around. Oh, see, look what I did. See that on the... How I managed to... I guess she got some on her wing. Yep, she got some on her wing. Of course, you know, when I do this by myself, everything goes perfectly. That's going to be... How about we just do another dome for right now? And I will... That's the nice thing now. I can go over and wash that, just run it under water, and that adhesive will come right out. So see, it was a good thing. You got to see what to do in case you managed to get a little more adhesive in places than you meant to. So let me try this again. It takes a steady hand. I never did like that game operation. She goes right there. That's where it catches. All right, I think that time we managed. Okay. So there you go. You can wow your friends and family with this little project. I hope you enjoyed it, and come visit me on my website and see what I have to offer. Other freebies, classes, collage sheets. Anyway, have fun, enjoy shrink plastic. I know you will. It's fairly addictive, and I apologize for that in advance, but not really, because it's super cool. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.